country will tomorrow launch an online portal which will see the disbursement of funds meant for the vulnerable populations made easier. Now, according to the Ministry of the East African Community of Labour and Social Services, they have managed to raise 80 billion shillings in the last 4 years as funds that will be distributed through this channel. And now, to delve deeper, I'm joined by none other than the Principal Secretary of Social Security, Madam Susan Mochache. Thank you so much for speaking with us. If we could just kind of break it down for us, because what we have is kind of, social protection defined in Kenya is really looking at towards the vulnerable and looking at how to sustain their lives and their livelihoods, kind of improving their welfare. Yes. From where you sit, are we on the correct definition of social protection?
Yes, indeed. You're very much on the right path. Social protection is really a way of improving the livelihoods of people and ensuring that the most poor and the most vulnerable are really, cushioned from shocks and risks that come either out of illness, out of their just inability to engage economically, or sometimes it could also be because of old age and they're not able to then also become active in their day-to-day lives and take care of themselves. Or it could also be because they are severely disabled and therefore, they cannot be able to take care of themselves, or because of natural causes such as drought or hunger, and also could be because of unemployment, suddenly just throwing somebody into a serious economic shock. So all those are, aspects of social protection.
There's a question that you receive often, which is how do you identify, who's vulnerable or who the government will actually be able to support?
Yeah, okay. It's we can define people who are vulnerable in many ways, depending on what is the cause of the shock to that person. If, for example, you're talking about somebody who has just lost a job, I mean, that's where pension funds come in to support such a person. If you're talking about people who are very old, then because of old age, they are not able to take care of themselves, that also becomes somebody who you'd target to support because they're considered vulnerable. Again, as I said, if somebody is very ill, they're not able to take care of themselves, then again, that's a vulnerable person. Or just because they're predisposed to the natural conditions that, curtail their access to food. So all those would predispose people to vulnerability and would therefore fall in that classification of being vulnerable.
I think for a long time in the country, we've really focused on kind of on a more reactive measure, in the sense that we haven't quite spurred people to kind of, if it is to save through NSF and HIF, to kind of plan, for such eventualities. I'm looking at here as especially support towards the elderly. And I'm also wondering, as the government, is there any measures or any ways that you're actually doing to encourage this well in advance?
Well, I would want to say, Laban, actually, I think we have tried. I mean, the National Social Security Fund exists for the reason of ensuring that people in employment save for their future retirement. NHIF is also there to provide health insurance. But even in those scenarios, you'll always have those Kenyans who will not fit into either of those, social security programs per se.
Is it because maybe looking at the formal employment bit?
Because
or
either
some
yes. Yes, some are not in formal employment, but although these programs have also extended to people in informal sectors, but even then you have people who are generally very lower down in the economic ladder, the very poor of the poorest. And for those, I wish to also just point out that the Constitution is clear that as a government we have an obligation to ensure that we provide for those people who are not able to take care of themselves or their dependents. So the strength of what we do is also drawn from the Constitution. And if you look at Vision 2030 as well, it does talk about a fund set aside to take care of the vulnerable in the society. So at any given time, you would anticipate that any society would have people that are, would be considered vulnerable and would therefore require support to ensure that they have a better life and to ensure that they're more resilient in their livelihoods.
But Mochache, it's a topic that's not really been given a lot of attention, in the sense that when we talk about Vision 2030, we always focus kind of on the huge infrastructure projects and what really will be the mega projects, and forgetting kind of the social issues. Is it maybe like as Kenyans perhaps, or maybe in your ministry, that you haven't quite made a lot of noise and made sure that Kenyans actually understand the importance of doing this?
I think I want to first say that as a government, I think we recognize the importance of the social pillar, and that's why, our economic blueprint, Vision 2030, has a whole pillar on social development, and amongst those is the care for the vulnerable groups. And a lot has been done, as you're aware. In the last 4 years, as you rightly pointed out, the government has already invested 80.5 billion. This financial year alone, we have set aside 21 billion to go towards these groups of vulnerable people. So you can see that these initiatives go hand in hand with the other major infrastructure projects that indeed we need to develop our economy. And the social pillar really, or the issues to do with social protection, are issues of fighting and eradicating poverty, which we also must address. So I would think it's not fair to say that, government has not been at the forefront. We have, just looking at the numbers. Within the region, in Africa and in East Africa, we are amongst the countries that have made significant investments on social protection. And the single registry in itself is also a first in Africa, that we have been able to, model our social protection using an ICT platform. So that just shows you the sort of commitment that government has on social protection and the recognition that it therefore gives on support for the vulnerable and the poor.
You mentioned the single register. I think you preempted my next question, which will be looking at how this will kind of change the way of how money was collected before, because I'm told some actually had to there's constant use of paperwork and a lot of use of paperwork. And here now we're moving into the inculcation of ICT. I'm just looking at forward from tomorrow's launch, any other stopgap measures that you've introduced, because moving in from what you're used to kind of a completely new system, and here you're distributing, now you're looking at 80 billion shillings, of course we're expecting more. How are you planning on doing that?
One, yes, indeed, it's been a journey like any other. The process was very manual based a few years ago when it started, but we are very happy that over time we have really embraced ICT, again very much in line with the commitment of this government to be digital. And so I will tell you, for example, beneficiaries used to be paid at the post office just using their fingerprints, but now we are using biometric identification and we are using the identity cards. So already you can see that we are graduating the program with technology to eliminate chances of fraud.
Very quickly, Madam Mochache, just
yes.
about tomorrow, just a snippet. You're having a launch. I think this will be was presided over by the Deputy President, but you're not having the Minister.
Yes.
What are we looking forward to, and what now will change going forward in social protection?
Yeah, indeed, what we will be doing will be unveiling the single registry. And what the single registry will be doing, it will be one single repository of all beneficiaries that benefit from any social protection program in this country. So beyond the programs by government, which cover 880,000 Kenyans, we are looking at other programs, say, by the county governments, other initiatives by our development partners, World Food Program, USAID. We have various partners who are operating in this sector. So we'll now have a single repository of information, which one informs us as a country about the level of investment that we are making, which also informs our own policy, interventions and our own planning. And more importantly, it really brings in the issue of efficiency. So one of the challenges we had prior to single registry is the issue of single dipping. So you have one beneficiary benefiting from multiple programs. And you can see we have scarce resources and we need to ensure inclusivity to more people. So with a single registry, we'll be able to ensure that inclusivity is realized, there's more efficiency in the way that we manage these programs. And really, we will be able to ensure that there's greater accountability and transparency to Kenyans, because you can now access as a Kenyan this system through our website and be able to see who indeed are these beneficiaries that we are talking about.
Very well. Thank you so much for speaking with us, and all the best in tomorrow's launch.